from the blackest corners of your mind, they call, pulling you deep into shadow, twisting your senses, keeping you from sleep. It's time to face your darkest fears. This is Tales to Terrify.
Good evening, children of the night, and welcome. We have two stories for you this evening about a man on an empty highway struggling to trust his fading memory, and a woman whose skepticism is tested by her lover's carnal faith. Our first story for the evening comes from Derek Allen Jones. Derek Allen Jones spends most of his time working in a warehouse in Kansas, and the rest of it writing speculative fiction. His work has appeared in Apex, the Saturday Evening Post, Gamut, and Utopia Science Fiction, among others. Find it all at DerekAllenJones.com. Children of the night, join me for Derek Allen Jones's Somewhere on US 50, Sometime in the Night, a Tales to Terrify original. He left $4 on the table, and he paused as he reached the door, letting the light wash over him for just a moment longer before stepping out into the night. Back on the road, he watched the white lines, just to have a point of focus, as the wipers beat out a lopsided rhythm that the drumming of the rain refused to follow. After the light of the diner had faded to black in his rearview mirror, he tried the radio again, and found it still monopolized by static. He wondered how long he'd been driving, and he wondered how long he had left. The dash clock in that old Lincoln, though, hadn't ticked once in all the time the man had been on the road. The highway wasn't lit this far out, and he'd been driving in total darkness until he hit another town. In the meantime, the only sensory stimulation he would have would be those white lines in his headlights and the slapping of the wipers. The world beyond those headlights was so dark and so flat and so still that he couldn't quite be sure that the world was out there at all. He tried to remember what time he'd set out, but the early leg of the trip wasn't as sharp in his mind as he had hoped. He couldn't remember much, in fact, before the sight of the diner in his mirrors. He must have been driving a very long time, he thought, and he must be very tired. He reckoned that it couldn't be very long now if there were so many hours behind him, and he took enough comfort from that conclusion to put his mind at ease. He stretched his right leg toward the passenger side and let his left foot take the pedal, just for a change of position. Just for any change at all. Rather quickly, though, the discomfort overpowered the novelty, so he put each foot back in its proper place, and he tried the radio again. The act was more of a fidget by then than any actual good-faith attempt. He turned the volume knob back down until it clicked, and, with quiet resignation, he let himself settle in. He'd have to buy a watch, he thought, when he got to where he was going, so he wouldn't find himself at the mercy of the broken dash clock again. He allowed his mind to wander for a while over thoughts of leather and gold, and he felt some excitement growing in himself over the prospect. A very nice watch, he thought. He'd go first thing in the morning, as the stores would surely all be closed when he got into town tonight. He struggled, though, to remember what town it was that he would be getting into. As the gravity of that realization spread across his mind, he felt his heartbeat quicken. His breathing quickened with it, coming in sharp and shallow stabs, and he searched in desperation for any reassurance he could find. It was just that he'd been driving a very long time, he thought. It was just that he was very tired. As long as he just stayed on this road, he wouldn't get turned around. Eventually, there would be a motel. Eventually, there would be something. He'd stop and sleep for the night, and in the morning, he'd be thinking clearly. He'd make the rest of the drive then, wherever the rest of the drive went. Lost in his panic, and then in his planning, he failed at first to notice a faint, soft glow on the horizon, in the world beyond his headlights. It calmed him, and it heartened him, and that calm gave way to elation as the glow resolved itself into the shape of an all-night diner. A cup of coffee and some toast, he thought, would do him a great deal of good. So he pulled that Lincoln into the lot and brought it to a stop. It was the warm yellow light that hit him first, and he basked in it for a moment. The air inside was thick with the smell of grease and day-old coffee, and his shoes stuck to the unmopped floor with every step he took. He slid easily across the naugahyde as he nestled into the booth, and he strained his ears to try to make out the song playing over the speaker. It was muffled, and it was distant, but he was glad to hear it at all, and he was almost certain that if it were clearer, he would recognize the tune. He found himself adrift in what he assumed was false familiarity, as if he'd sat in just that spot 100 times before. In a way, he supposed, he had. Every roadside diner in that part of the country was more or less the same, and this one very well could have passed for any one of 1,000 others. The stainless steel counter had the same faint scratches. The floor had the same brown tinge. The same piece of duct tape covered the same small crack in the same orange naugahyde. He leaned his head back against the window as he waited to be served, and before long the rain in that distant tune persuaded the man to sleep. When he woke, it seemed that the server had already come and gone, leaving in front of him a warm white mug, 2 pieces of buttered wheat toast, and a handwritten ticket totaling the amount of $3.17. He chuckled as he looked it over, and he wondered if it had been a lucky guess, or if coffee and toast was the go-to order for every straggler this time of night. It occurred to him then that he still had no clue just what time of night it was. He wondered, too, why it was so hard to think back even as far as walking in the door. A good sleep will do that to a man, he thought, and he figured he must have slept well, and he was certain his thoughts would sort themselves out once he got back on the road. The coffee and toast were especially good, and they were gone especially quickly. He left $4 on the table, and he paused as he reached the door, letting the light wash over him for just a moment longer, before stepping back into the night. Back on the road, he watched the white lines, just to have a point of focus, as the wipers beat out a lopsided rhythm that the drumming of the rain refused to follow. After the light of the diner had faded to black in his rearview mirror, he tried the radio again and found it still monopolized by static. He wondered how long he'd been driving, and he wondered how long he had left. That was Derek Allen Jones's Somewhere on US 50, Sometime in the Night, as read by yours truly. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about me, you can visit talestoterrify.com/staff or reach out through our website. I'm always happy to hear from you. Our second tale tonight comes from Akis Linardos. Akis is a pagan werewolf disguised as an AI scientist to steal tech secrets from humans. When his mission is complete, he will settle forever in a cave on Mount Olympus, where he will continue conjuring dark stories. His other musings haunt places such as Apex, Dread Machine, Flame Tree, and Apparition Lit, among others. Listen with me, children of the night, to Akis Linardos's Baited by Water's Shadow, a Tales to Terrify original.
Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. But give a fish a man, and it will only hunger for more. Way to break the awkward silence. Do you say that to all the girls? I asked her. Ismene smiled and slowly reeled her fishing line in. Only the special ones, Marina. If I wasn't so into her, I'd have found an excuse to call off this date, if it really was a date. She was hot, with a tiny hook tattooed like a beauty mark at the corner of her left eye. An herbal scent enwrapped her, mingling with the salty sea breeze, oregano and thyme, because she knew how to cook a fish just right. I hadn't tried her cooking, but I had seen her Instagram photos of dishes such as baked bacalhaos, fish with tomato and crushed feta on top. We'd been e-friends for 2 months, swapping favorite artists, ASMR vids, and implied dirty fantasies. Although she was at the other end of Crete, Ismene had recently gotten her driver's license and was all too excited to pick me up and bring me over to Arvi, her village. I had been looking forward to this trip. But the thing she said, maybe she wasn't into girls and I had read this whole situation wrong. Maybe she was trying to unsettle me as a way to keep things friendly, to make sure I wouldn't see her sexually. Maybe that's why she wore the straw hat so low, covering her eyes to avoid meeting mine. The line popped off the water and swung unstably over our heads. Ismene caught it moments before the hook landed on my face. With a smile, she dug into the shrimp bucket, nested in a nook the boulders formed beside us. "Damn fish escaped," she said. "We'll get the next one. Maybe be more careful with that is." Ismene crouched over the hook, pushing the shrimp slowly through it to cover it entirely and mask the danger from the unsuspecting fish. Careful with what? The hook, I mean. It almost hit me. Her fingers froze. She turned her head slowly. The smile was gone. "Are you a fish?" Excuse me? "If not, you have nothing to fear from my hook, right?" I might have tried to swallow and found a lump on my throat. I can't recall. What I do remember is the dawning realization that we were miles from home, alone in a remote corner of a rarely visited beach. I had no way of returning on my own. Suddenly, she smiled again. "I'm sorry. My dad has a dark sense of humor, and I got it from him. My friends know to laugh." It occurred to me then that many things she had texted me through these 2 months could have been interpreted as eerie. like that line shoehorned amid a random Instagram DM discussion. You are not a fish. Maybe I was too excited about the things we had in common to notice. Or maybe I was too excited to find another person that had unusual desires. Desires the rest of my friends or family would never approve of. That's all right. I'll just have to get used to it. She chuckled. You don't have to get used to it. I can be more gentle with you, love. At the word love, my chest warmed up and now for sure had a lump in my throat. Then came my awkward comeback. You sparkle like... Like what? I couldn't think of anything. I reached for words helplessly. Like... pure silence. Like the waves. I expected an uncomfortable laugh, but she smiled. Thank you. I think you're sparkly as well. And the waves are lovely. Her attention returned to her fishing line. I leaned against the rough rock, grateful to get a break from the conversation and simply watch the whooshing waves, letting the sun warm my body and spray it cool again. Ismene stood. I assumed wanting better control of her fishing line this time. My gaze strayed to her reflection in the dark waters, a wavering shadow. As she cast the line, a silver strand flicked off the shadow and nested on my toe, like an afterimage of a fishing line. But with the flick of my feet and a blink of my eyes, the strand was gone. Merely a trick of the light. We had already planned I'd stay over for the night, and since I was finally in university, my parents had no say in that. Never mind how much they'd protested. On the highest hill of RV Village, past a dirt road full of pebbles that rocked her Hyundai Getz like a wagon, past a sudden turn that made my heart leap to my throat from fear we were falling past a cliff. Ismene's home nested, beautifully isolated and filled with lovable, meowing kittens on a flagstone-paved garden. She lived there with her grandma, a kind old lady that smelled like cinnamon and shuffled around with a cane. So wrinkled I wanted to cover her in a blanket and give her a warm brew. Granny Maria, she was called, and after greeting me and kissing my cheek with puckered lips, she retreated inside the house. My gaze followed the old woman, feeling a tinge of guilt for invading her space to do things she wouldn't approve of, doing things my own parents wouldn't approve of. So many times I'd wanted to approach girls but shied away. The memory of my mother berating a reporter on the TV for coming out as a lesbian. I'd once been made fun of by the very girl I liked. A rumor quickly spread among all girls in class, which I figured by the way they giggled in my direction and made profane gestures. I had to beg my parents to change schools. Never made a move again. Not in the open, at least, but in the quiet corners of the internet. Ismene slapped her catch over the hard oak table by the earthen stove and started instantly descaling, with a skinning knife hanging from her keyring. An overhang covered us from the burning sun. The long threads beaded with oysters, clams, and dusty shells clicked playfully in the breeze. I kept myself busy petting the playful kittens, avoiding Ismene's eyes, too conscious of my intent and my awkward attempt at a compliment. Eventually, Ismene turned to the storeroom by the earthen stove, pulled a bucket full of veggies, yanked me over, and handed me a sharp knife and an onion. Don't slice, cube them. Cube? Yes, like this. She wrapped her arms around my body, a golf instructor kind of hug, and guided my hand and knife mid-air to show me the movement. Tack, tack, tack. Don't think about it, just cut, cut, cut. We want them tiny to melt in extra virgin olive oil. Half an hour and plenty of onion tears later, she congratulated me, but sliced the cubes farther down to bits herself before tossing in the pan to sizzle. My eyes smarted so much I couldn't stop blinking. I'll take over the rest, love, she said. Go inside. Kitchen's right beside the entry. Put your eyes close to running water. It helps the sting. but it didn't. Maybe I was doing it wrong? I rubbed water over my eyelids, which made me hurt more. After 10 or 11 blinks and squinching, I was half cured. The living room was built of stone and white mortar and smelled of mountain herbs. Doily mantels decorated every surface, as I'd expected from a typical grandma place. Very rustic. Something stood out, though. A sketch portrait of a naked, bearded man nesting upon a seashell by the beach. I took a few slow steps toward the sketch and saw an array of portraits adorning the cabinet below. So many vintage photographs, a little army of black and white nostalgia. There was a man in one of them, hands over 2 men, all 3 of them very hairy in the chest. That's my grandpa with his boyfriends. Ah! Scared you? How did Ismene move so quietly? And wasn't she just descaling the fish outside? She didn't smell like fish. She smelled like cinnamon. A rather odd choice for marinating fish. Wait, did you say boyfriend? No, boyfriends? You mean friends, of course. No, boyfriends. Fuck buddies. Wow. Don't be so shocked. My grandma had 4. What? Girlfriends. The image of the kind, wrinkly lady didn't bode well with this. I struggled to keep my mind away from the uncomfortable thoughts and chastise myself for being an ageist. People are not born old, after all. But in a village so traditional, how could a generation of that time be as open-minded as even millennials like me dread to be? What did the village say about this? My parents are all mad into religion. They'd hang me up if they knew. She chuckled. What a village doesn't know cannot harm them, nor can it harm us. The dodecatheon doesn't care about such things. There were bits and pieces here and there that gave me the suspicion this girl was slightly mental. And maybe that was part of what I found so attractive about her. Unbound by rules of society. But what she was implying was too much, even for her. You're dodecatheists? You're not. I frowned. Are you meeting dodecatheists often? You know I'm an atheist. I mentioned that. All atheists are dodecatheists. What are you on about? You believe in the sea, the sky, and death, don't you? You believe in night and in the primordial chaos that came before it. I don't. She placed a finger over my lips, mouthing shh with her lips. The gods, love, are devisers of the most wicked plans. They expected it when they went to slumber, that the world would be fragmented over who had shaped existence first. Likely they hadn't expected that after Prometheus handed man fire, man would go as far as breaching the secrets of creation. We often wonder what they'd think of it now. Her palm softly trailed down my neck, and my breasts warmed with rushing blood. Maybe I was speechless. More likely, horny paralyzed. What about your grandma? She's gone grocery shopping, and she's very discreet anyway. Our gods demand no absurd prudeness from their worshippers. They don't pretend to want us free of the depravity they themselves divulge so deeply in. She moved closer, pushed me gently on the wall, beside the sketch of the naked bearded man. By my ear, so close I felt her breath, she whispered, "You want to know why every god in the pantheon is pansexual?" Something felt off. Part of me wanted to run and cancel this whole thing off. Instead, my body tensed like a taut string. As her gentle hand reached and caressed my thighs, I nodded meekly. "Because," she said, "immortality is an awfully long time. to spend without tasting every flavor of spice. Okay, so there was no longer any doubt about her seeing me sexually, though I still wondered if unsettling me was part of her crazy plan to get me to bed. And I was surprised it succeeded. We dozed off after the sex, and when I woke, I was for a moment severely dazed, confused at my surroundings. I suppose it's the normal response, waking lights off in the middle of the night in an unfamiliar bed, in a house I never slept in before, in a village I've never slept in before. And there was this presence over me, a wet munching by my ear. It was soothing in that transient state between half-sleep and blurry consciousness. Then I realized it was creepy as fuck. I leaped from the bed, bumping my head on something hard and falling back down. Something oily and warm landed between my breasts. A fish, half-eaten, dripping tomato sauce. Whipping my head around, I saw Ismene palming her chin in pain, her lips glimmering oil. Memories returned. The warm tingles her body pressed against mine had offered the night before. What are you doing? She swallowed, licked her lips. I thought you liked ASMR. Oh. I thought it would be a nice way to wake you up. Dinner's ready. The way she said nice sent a chill down my spine. Her intention seemed sweet, in a way, but dude, boundaries. Maybe I like ASMR for falling asleep. Waking up, I need something else, right? Please don't chew over my face again. She nodded with a smile. Come, there's more outside. She hopped rabbit-like past the ajar door. As consciousness fully came to me, so did the rumble of hunger. I gingerly cradled the fish off me and followed her outside. 2 plates had been served, the thoroughly marinated bacalhaos, drizzled with oil, glimmering under the flickering light of a lantern, brighter than any of her Instagram photos. A 3rd plate lay empty, an oily puddle of scales and tomato seeds. Through my still dazed, half-lucid dreaming imagination, there was also a shivering shadow some steps away from the table. A woman cross-legged upon a smooth boulder, a straw hat covering her eyes, a fishing pole extending from her arms, its line cast down to the oiled surface of the 3rd plate. With a blink, the woman vanished, washed over by waves of the cool night wind. Had to be the excitement, the dizziness of the long trip, the increased heat of Crete's southern coast. The human mind is a mystery. I placed the fish on the empty plate, craned my head to see if Ismene was somewhere beyond the paved part, where a garden of trees stretched. Ismene? Coming. Gathering some lemons. They bring up the flavor. I sat and waited, gazing at the smooth boulder, squinting as if expecting something to happen. Then I noticed the carving, like a love letter knifed into the tree behind. You are not a fish. You are the angler. The bacalhaos was succulent, flavor elevated by the lemon juice and extra salt. Hasn't your grandma returned yet? I asked her. Sure, she has. There's another room upstairs if you follow that road. She pointed to the slanting flagstone paved path continuing past the opposite side of the tree garden and curving over itself, skirting over a large oak that obscured the rest. Hope we didn't wake her. Don't worry. Nothing wakes her when she slumbers. Right. I pointed to the writing on that tree. What is the meaning of that phrase? I think you texted it to me once, too. Licking a finger, she eyed the carved message on the tree and shrugged. A reminder. Reminder? How do you think a fish feels when it's forced out of the sea into our world? With my next bite, a fish bone edged itself into an irritating spot between my gum and molar, and I tongued to get it out. I reckon it might be too busy suffering as it suffocates. Probably has no room for contemplation. Think about it, though. Living your whole life surrounded by something invisible you take for granted. A liquid world. Suddenly air and unknown. An alien atmosphere. Is the physical pain enough to cover the existential dread of the unknown? Maybe it was the word existential that made my gaze shift upward, acutely aware of how visible the stars were here compared to the city. I wondered, was the way a fish felt out of water the same for an astronaut? Was the abyss more terrible, or sights unimagined once the cover of the helmet is gone? It felt stupid, but mostly I didn't feel comfortable sharing that thought. You're the angler here. I haven't thought of fishing so deeply. With a shrug, she tore apart the fish head, flicked an eyeball into her mouth, and chewed with exaggerated lip movements. Anyway, it's kind of a way to remind myself we're different. You eat the head? Let nothing go to waste. Something suffered for this meal. My tongue shoved the bone further in, and I felt the wet taste and trickling blood, so I squeezed my thumb into my mouth and flicked it with the fingernail to get it out. The bone came out of my gums. I spat it on a napkin in a little pink puddle. Ismene reached for the fish skeleton on her plate, snapping the little bones and biting them like chips. Aren't you worried it might pierce your throat? I have no heathen throat. Glaucus never betrays his followers like that for respecting what the sea gives. Look at me, I thought, hooking up with a zealot in her own house, surrounded in ghostly hallucinations. A lump formed in my throat as a thought crossed my mind, that perhaps she was drugging me with something. A hallucinogen in the water? No, that couldn't be. I felt perfect otherwise. Greater than ever, fully aware. Besides, what could I do? Run back to my parents? Call Daddy to pick me up from the other side of Crete? I was my own woman now, and I'd see it through to the end. Is that some Greek god I'm missing? She shook her head. A sad thing, how our true religion faded into obscurity. Glaucus is the god of fishing. You saw him, bearded, sitting on the boulder-sized seashell. Ah, so that's who that was. I'm telling you, someday they will return to bring order to the chaotic world. She reached for the napkin by my plate, removed the bone inside, and swallowed it whole. Saturday could easily be described in 4 words. Fishing, swimming, eating, sex. And sure, other words came to mind throughout that day, but I was still in too much denial to accept. Creepy, eccentric, maybe a cult. In comparison to the subtle bullying and the parental gaslighting, hallucinations weren't too bad. Nor was Ismene's eccentric nature. Then night came again, and I doubt it was denial that made me dismiss the supernaturality of the sex this time. Much more likely, it was the stupor of intense desire. It couldn't have been real. Ismene rubbing against my thigh while ghostly copies of herself touched me in other places, some of them kissing me with liquid tongues, all of them shivering like shadowy reflections on a lake. And then I awoke in that same unfamiliar bed. No ASMR munching over me, thank God, with the other side empty. So I knew it had to be a dream, no matter how real it had seemed, no matter how intense, no matter how wet and sore my thighs still felt as I stumbled to my feet and trudged to the bathroom. The pee stung as it poured out, and I felt more viscous than it should have. Trying my clothes, I found them too drenched in sweat to wear, so I covered my nakedness in nothing but my coat and walked outside. It was still dark. Perhaps I kept waking up during the night because my body was agitated at the unfamiliarity of this place. This time it was warmer with the kind of Cretan heat that dizzies people by daylight, so much they drive like madmen in the streets. Only this was night. Where had she gone off to now? What time was it? My cell phone hadn't been by the bed, and it wasn't on the table outside. Ismene? Silence. I scratched my thigh, the itch of mosquito stings somewhat confirming all this was real. These bugs had no place in a dream world, not even a nightmare. I'm up here. Her voice came from over the oak tree, from the upper level of the house where her grandma's room nested on the ceiling, invisible from down here. Your grandma back? Yeah, we're preparing breakfast. It's 7 already. Just takes a while longer for the sun to rise today. Helios is taking a break. Oh, okay, I said, because what the hell? If you can't beat 'em, humor them. Or join them. An uncomfortable thought whispered, and my spine shuddered. Come on up. We'll show you how to make a nice pastry with sardines. Family recipe. I eyed the door behind me. Part of me wanted to go back to the safety of sweat-wet bedsheets. Another part wanted to teleport home, away from the ghosts and orgy visions. In the coziness of my own room, I could masturbate under warm sheets from the safe distance of a screen between me and her. Maybe I could take a bus. Soon it would be daylight and I could find an excuse, like not feeling well. She would point me to the nearest station. Public transportation was likely to be a nightmare, as was always the case in Crete, but I'd make it home. With renewed vigor at my decision, I walked up the slanting path and over the curved tree. The path continued up the mountain, but there was a smaller room nested on top of the house, surrounded by strings of laundry and a couple of foldable deck chairs. No door, only a dense mosquito screen barred the threshold. Cool place to watch the stars from, I said as I walked toward the isolated room. It really is. I pushed the mosquito screen inward, and a sensation like passing through multiple cobwebs wrapped around me. The kind of thing you might expect from an old house, but of course this made no sense, unless it was abandoned, and they had to have crossed that door just now. That is something I thought of later, in reminiscing, because at that moment, I had no time to think. Something yanked me from the face and pulled me further in before I could even process my surroundings. My mind struggled to understand the senses engulfing me, disoriented, shivering, and gasping for air but finding only sharp emptiness filling my lungs. I clutched the coat tight around me like a protective shell, as if its warmth could protect me. But the pain was soon foggy, a distant thing, because my mind was too busy struggling to comprehend the alien surroundings to fully register pain. The walls were at once curved and flat, pulsating like the inside of a lung. No floor. I floated over, beneath, about, fluttering, kelp-like shadows, all of them in the shape of her. Some thinner, some shorter, some older. Among the shadows, the granny came, and though I ached to scream to her for help, she gave me her grandmotherly smile and proffered a pie. And there was a carving on top spelling, "You are a fish." I shook my head, fatigued now, dazed, drugged by air deprivation and the piercing alien cold. You must embrace it. But her voice was not grandmotherly, not even her form was anymore. She was an ethereal mermaid, the shivering reflection of one, and the wrinkles were squirming tattoos undulating with the tide. The gods, love, are devisers of the most wicked plans. Poseidon needs nourishment. to rule the seas again. And Glaucus provides, as do his believers. Choking for breath, I couldn't form words, so I mouthed my question. Is many? One is many, and you'll be two. One can cast endless reflections in the water, but for that, you'll need your flesh no more. Her ghost retreated. No, I retreated, yanked away by something. I fell through a tunnel, or maybe I was lifted. I couldn't tell anymore. When I landed on that pink coast, all I could focus on was the seashell spiral. I tried to twist my head, gaze at the black waters beyond the pink sand, but my eyes refused to look. On the corners of my vision, I might have seen tentacle shapes and membranous wings, swallowing clouds in a foaming sky. No power left in me, consciousness stripped to blurry perception. I was vaguely aware of a giant crouching over me, lifting me up, before sinking teeth through skin and flesh that no longer felt my own.
That was Akis Linardos' Baited by Water's Shadow, as read by Michelle Kane. By day, Michelle navigates the mundane world of her day job, where spreadsheets and meetings rule the hours. But when she's behind the microphone, she transforms into something entirely different. As a narrator for Tales to Terrify, creepy and chilling tales for dark nights, Michelle breathes life into tales that make spines tingle and hearts race, weaving through narratives of ghosts, monsters of the human variety, and the supernatural. Beyond her passion for storytelling, Michelle is a devoted mom to both an amazing kiddo and a sweet doggo. When she's not narrating bone-chilling tales and juggling work and parenthood, Michelle enjoys reading, watching movies, getting outdoors, and, sort of, playing the upright bass and cajon. Michelle can be found on Instagram and Threads at Michelle_Kane_. Thank you, Michelle. Well, children of the night, the hour is late and we've run out of tales to tell. For now. Tales to Terrify is made possible by the tremendous generosity of our supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Incredible fans like Lestle Baxter, Amanda Carrillo, Amanda Gottfried, and Orion D. Hegre, whose generous support keeps these lights on and flickering ominously. If you're not a supporter, head over to patreon.com/Tales to Terrify. You'll find all kinds of perks, like ad-free episodes, bonus content, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Every dollar goes back into this show, and we appreciate your support so much. Want another way to support the show that doesn't cost you a cent? Head over to Podchaser, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star review. You'll not only put an unnaturally wide smile on our faces, but help new listeners discover our terrifying tales too. You can show your love of the show out in the world with some Tales to Terrify merch. TalesToTerrify.com/merch will take you to our TeePublic store, where we've got a great collection of creepy custom and curated designs. Tales to Terrify is produced by Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, Andrew Gibson, Crystal Hammond, Spencer Disparty, and myself, Drew Sebesteny, with original theme by Nebulous Entertainment. Tales to Terrify is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Join us again next week as we untether our primal nature with more tales to terrify.